This address is coming just days after a series of communal clashes have taken place across several states, including the national capital. In Jahangirpuri, in the national capital, bulldozers had come out yesterday, just days after the violence on Hanuman Jayanti. Today, the residents got relief from the Supreme Court with the stay on the demolition drive now continuing for 2 more weeks. What exactly has the court said on these demolitions and bulldozer politics? It's our top focus.
Rolling bulldozers, demolition drive, frayed nerves, followed by Supreme Court break on bulldozer. This was the high drama on Wednesday, and a day later, Delhi's communal cauldron, Jahangirpuri, saw more respite from Supreme Court, with break on bulldozers being extended by 2 more weeks, and the status quo imposed by Supreme Court remaining in place. A bench of Justices L. Nageshwar Rao and B.R. Gavai issued notice to the centre, state government, Delhi Police, MCD on the plea filed by the Jamiyat Ulama-e-Hind. The apex court also said that it will take a serious view of the demolition on Wednesday, which was carried out even after its orders, though the NDMC mayor was informed. The SC order came after a series of passionate arguments by both sides. The petitioners claim that the demolition drive is nothing but vendetta against poor Muslims after riots, adding that the police is being used as a state tool by the BJP to settle scores. But the government lawyer stoutly rejected the charges, saying the demolition drive was on since January. He also denied charges that only Muslims were targeted and pointed to Hindu residents hit by demolition drive.
वहाँ पर उस मौके पर स्टेटस को मेंटेन रखें, कोई डेमोलिशन नहीं होगा 2 हफ्ते तक, और उसमें जवाब आएगा अलग अलग पार्टीज का। जो हमारी पिटिशन है उसमें भी हम एडिशनल एफिडेविट फाइल करेंगे और फिर उसके बाद कोर्ट उस पर सुनवाई करेगी, लेकिन 2 हफ्ते तक कोई डेमोलिशन नहीं।
14 दिनों का स्टे लग चुका है, लेकिन हमारा तो एमसीडी ने पूरा नाजायज तरीके से नुकसान कर दिया। इसको कोई नोटिस नहीं दिया गया, कोई कुछ नहीं दिया गया, और ये बिल्कुल लीगल दुकान है। मेरे पास सारे पेपर हैं। नुकसान 7-8 लाख रुपए का मेरा हो गया है। 2.5 फुट अलाउड होता है कोर्ट की तरफ से। हर मकान का देख लीजिए आप, 3 फुट 4 फुट सज्जा निकला हुआ है, तो मेरा 1.5 फुट क्यों तोड़ दिया गया?
जो भी माननीय सुप्रीम कोर्ट का आदेश होगा उस पर पूर्ण तौर पर हम उसका पालन करेंगे।
Bulldozers had torn down several concrete and temporary structures close to a mosque in Jahangirpuri on Wednesday, under an anti-encroachment drive by Delhi civic body MCD. The crackdown had come just 4 days after clashes during a Hanuman Jayanti rally taken out without police nod. With Anisha Mathur and Nalini Sharma in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
Away from the politics and the law over bulldozers, there is the human angle. Remember, the people of Jahangirpuri are mostly poor, live on the margins of society. These are the very people who woke up yesterday to find the MCD bulldozers reach their houses in a neighborhood, demolishing unauthorized constructions. Many of them pleaded and begged because they claimed that they had put their life savings into these constructions. But the bulldozer made its way through, leaving rubbles with people shocked and at a loss of words. Tonight's Get Real India story is of the people who've lost their homes. Not all of them can be called rioters, as many would think. Milan Sharma has tonight's story.
Surrounded by Delhi Police, Municipal Corporation of Delhi bulldozed their home and shops in Jahangirpuri of the capital today. The court order stopped them, but by then, Rakesh's juice shop was also gone.
यहाँ पर जब बुलडोजर चल रहा था तो आपको किसी ने फोन करके बताया यहाँ पर?
जैसे हम लोग आए, जैसे तोड़ना चालू कर दिया, पहुंचे थे उससे पहले से ही। हाँ जी।
मुझे एक बात बताइए कि ये जो दुकान थी कितने समय से यहाँ पर थी?
जी ये 15-20 साल हो गए इसको।
15-20 सालों से, और आज अचानक से
बुलडोजर चलने लगा अचानक से।
Ruxana Jahan is shocked and refused to come out of what's left of her home.
मैं बीमार था, मैं घर का अंदर सो रहा था, ये तोड़ ताड़ के चला गया।
आप सो रहे थे तब?
हाँ, मेरा तो भी घबराहट हो रहा है, सब पुलिस वाला आ गया, मेरे को डर लग गया, तो मैंने जो कर रहा है मार के चला जाए वो भी मंजूर है। मेरा आदमी नहीं है, 2 बच्चा और बहू है।
एकदम अचानक से अगर कोई चीज हमारा आशियाना टूटता है और पब्लिक को इस तरह का धमकाया जा रहा है, डराया जा रहा है, तो लेडीज सब सुबह से बोल बोल के थक गई, इससे पहले भी डरी हुई हैं, तो किस तरह बातें करें बताइए। एक तो रमजान का महीना है, सब रोजे से हैं, किसी के हलक में पानी नहीं जा रहा है।
The mosque on the side of the road, which was in the center of 16th April riot, was not spared either.
इतना तो टाइम देना चाहिए कि सामान निकाल लें। हमारा नहीं निकला, कोई बात नहीं, मस्जिद का गेट निकाल लेते। वो लाखों रुपए का गेट है, देखो उसके 2 पेज खुलते वो अंदर हो जाता, चाहे तोड़ ही देते।
ये मस्जिद का गेट टूटा हुआ है।
2 मिनट का टाइम देते हैं ना, तो 2 मिनट में लाखों रुपए की वो सब चीजें जो है ना बच जाती है। अब इन्होंने तोड़ा और उसको ऐसा कर दिया डिमोलिश कि वो रिपेयर दोबारा मॉडिफाई भी नहीं हो सकता।
This was the point and the flashpoint of discontentment on the day that the violence broke out, because here was where there was an attempt, so said by people, to unfurl a saffron flag, but ultimately the politics of Bulldozer, leaving people here distraught because their businesses have been destroyed.
Gupta ji's shop is a stone throw away from the mosque in the corner. It too got bulldozed.
डीडीए ने अलॉट कराया था, उसकी फीस भी जाती है 4800 रुपये सालाना। सारा मेरा कागज है, सब कुछ है। और आए पहले भी कई बार अतिक्रमण हटाते थे, लेकिन कागज देखते थे, कागज देख के फिर चले जाते थे। इस बार कोई कागज देखने को तैयार नहीं। मैं कागज दिखाता रह गया कि भाई कागज देखो, कागज देखो। अगर कागज नहीं भी देखते हो तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट का ऑर्डर आ गया 1 घंटे पहले कि अतिक्रमण रोका जाए।
जो अवैध बने हुए हैं इनको तो छेड़ा नहीं गया है, क्योंकि ये पीछे 25 गज के मकान है। उसके बाद इन लोगों ने अंतराज में 50 गज मस्जिद के आड़ में दुकानें यहाँ से वहाँ तक बनवा रखी है। मंदिर के और मस्जिद के आड़ में जो अवैध बने हुए हैं, जिनसे कम से कम कुछ नहीं तो यहीं से सारी गुंडागर्दी, सारा कुछ यहीं से होता है।
Politics of Bulldozer has reached Delhi and people, the Aam Aadmi, is the only one that's suffering. With Ashok Banod from Jahangir Puri, Milan Sharma for India Today.
Indian citizens caught in the crossfire in bulldozer politics. Big questions. Will the Prime Minister today break his silence on the communal flare-ups that in a sense have built to this bulldozer politics? Will Mr. Modi play bridge builder in the age of bulldozers? Will there be a strong message of harmony from Red Fort as he addresses on Guru Tegh Bahadur's 400th anniversary? What should the Prime Minister be saying? Sudhindra Kulkarni, former BJP member and also who served in Mr. Vajpayee's PMO. He's an activist and columnist as well. I'm also joined by Supriya Srinath of the Congress Party, Sanju Verma of the BJP, Rahul Srivastava, National Affairs Editor, will also join us. But Sudhindra Kulkarni, to you first. You've written a very evocative, a couple of pieces where you've spoken about the need to put harmony above hate. What is your expectation? What would you like Prime Minister Modi to say or do at a moment like this?
The entire nation expects the Prime Minister to condemn unequivocally the upsurge of communal violence in recent months, and most recently, just a few days ago, in the national capital, which led to the barbaric bulldozing of poor people's properties, even a part of the mosque in Jahangir Puri. This is the Prime Minister's duty as the custodian of the Constitution.
No,
let's see what he says.
No, specifically, let's be clear. Law and order is a state subject. To that extent, should the Prime Minister be sending out a message first to also the state leaderships, the police forces? Should he be sending out a message cutting across communities rather than singling out one community?
Of course, he's the Prime Minister of India. He's the Prime Minister of all communities and, of course, also the Prime Minister of all the states. And the bulldozing of parts of Jahangirpuri could not have taken place without clearance from the top, the highest quarters of the government of India, that is his own government. But anyway, Rajdeep, since the occasion today is the 400th birth anniversary of Guru Tegh Bahadur, permit me to say a few words about this occasion, because it has something to do with what is happening in India now. Not many people know about Guru Tegh Bahadur. You know, I salute this great spiritual warrior of the Sikh community, the 9th Guru of the Guru Sampradaya of the Sikhs. Unfortunately, when we look back at history, there was a very dark period in India's history in parts of the Mughal period. Guru Tegh Bahadur was beheaded on the orders of none other than Aurangzeb in 1675 at a place not far from Red Fort where the Prime Minister is going to speak. He was beheaded in a style that is now made infamous by ISIS. Many of his associates were also tortured to death. Why? He was given a choice either to convert to Islam or to face death, and he chose death. Earlier, the 5th Guru of the Guru Sampradaya, Sikh Guru Sampradaya, Guru Arjan Dev, he was also tortured and killed on the orders of Emperor Jahangir. And in between, there was another dark act. None other than the younger brother of Aurangzeb, Dara Shikoh, was also beheaded. So, you know, all these memories cannot be obliterated, cannot be forgotten, and should not be forgotten. Because, as it is said, if we forget history, we are condemned to repeat it.
Guru Tegh Bahadur.
Indeed, in some way, history has been repeated. In 1984, there was a genocide of Sikhs, the genocide of Muslims elsewhere in the country. So it seems that India has not really learned the lessons of history, and in some way, it is repeating itself in the recent happenings in Delhi, in Madhya Pradesh, and many other parts of India.
You know, let me go to Sanju Verma, because Sanju Verma, this is a historic occasion, the 400th birth anniversary celebrations of Guru Tegh Bahadur. Symbol of valor, also was born in an age of intense conflict. And as Mr. Kulkarni put it, we do not want to see conflict in the India of the 21st century. The Prime Minister at 9:30 going to Red Fort to make this address. Can we expect that the Prime Minister will finally break his silence on what's happened in the country over the last 10 days during Navratra, Ram Navami and Hanuman Jayanti? Do you believe that those critics of the Prime Minister who say, why isn't Mr. Modi speaking up, have a case or not?
You know, Rajdeep, first and foremost, let me tell you that Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the last 8 years, every single month, the last Sunday of the month, he has a Mann Ki Baat, which is heard by 40 million, 4 crore Indians to be precise. So to say that Prime Minister Modi has not been engaging, I think that is a whole lot of hogwash.
No, they didn't say engaging. No, ma'am, nobody said not engaging. We said to speak out on the specific issue of ensuring communal harmony, enough of the hotheads, the rabble-rousers, those responsible for violence.
Rajdeep, I was coming to the answer. Please stop interjecting me.
Yes.
You have a very bad habit of interjecting BJP spokesperson.
Okay.
Can I please finish?
Please do.
Can I please finish?
Of course you can.
Yes, thank you.
Cool down.
Let me be very clear. Please don't interject me. Let me be very, very clear. Who are the hotheads? Who are the rabble-rousers? Let us start with the man who's making headlines today, Taqi Raza Khan. I don't think I need to educate anyone who has a faint idea of Indian politics that Taqi Raza Khan was inducted into the Congress party with a whole lot of fanfare ahead of the Uttar Pradesh assembly elections in 2021. Let's be very clear. What has Taqi Raza Khan said today? He said, मुसलमानों के साथ यदि ऐसा हुआ वैसा हुआ, I don't want to get into the semantics. तो भारत में दूसरी बार महाभारत होगा. Have you seen Rahul Gandhi, who has an opinion on everything under the sun, commenting or criticizing Taqi Raza Khan? No. Taqi Raza Khan's niece, Nida Khan, has categorically said Taqi Raza Khan is very close to Priyanka Vadra. Have you seen Priyanka Vadra saying anything to condemn Taqi Raza Khan? No. The simple point is this. Who are the people who are legitimizing Hindu phobia? Who are the people who are legitimizing these rabble-rousers? I hate to say it, but tell me one thing. You know, Rajdeep, who allied with the Popular Front of India's SDPI in the Karnataka local body polls in 2020? It was the Congress. Who went into an alliance with the Radical Welfare Party of India in the Kerala local body polls in 2020? It was the Congress. Who allied with Badruddin Ajmal's party for the Assam Assembly election? It was the Congress, and we all know Badruddin Ajmal is a radicalized Islamist. Which is the party which allied with Indian Secular Front Abbas Siddiqui. Abbas Siddiqui is a known hate monger ahead of the West Bengal Assembly election. It was the Congress party. So let me be very clear, if there is one party in India which has legitimized Hindu phobia, which has legitimized hate mongering, and yet has the audacity to give bhashan to the BJP, it is the Congress party.
Okay, you've had your time. I did not interrupt you, ma'am. The Prime Minister has arrived. The Prime Minister has arrived and will speak any moment. Supriya Shrinet, before the Prime Minister speaks, is the opposition, will the opposition sort of reach out to the Prime Minister if he tries to build bridges with you? Because as I keep saying, Mr. Modi is the Prime Minister of the country. The opposition at times, particularly the Congress, has been accused of not showing the due respect to Mr. Modi as the Prime Minister. That if Mr. Modi, for example, organizes the memorial for all Prime Ministers, the Congress boycotts it. You don't respect the Prime Minister. So what do you really expect the Prime Minister to do today or say?
So, unlike your accusation, I absolutely believe that Mr. Modi is not just the Prime Minister of the Bharatiya Janata Party. He is the Prime Minister of 140 crore Indians, including myself. And which is why I hope that my Prime Minister is going to speak against rabble-rousers, is going to speak against those people who fan religious hatred in this country. Some of them, his own party colleagues, his own colleagues in the union cabinet, his own colleagues within various states. But Mr. Modi did not speak a word against the 20th February violence, 2020 February violence in Delhi. He did not say a word when Assam and Mizoram were firing at each other. He did not say a word when women were being auctioned in the Sulli deals and Bulli by apps by, you know, youth of this country. He did not, please do not speak in between.
Miss Sanju Verma, you are breaking the rules on my show. Don't do that. I will ask you. I've done 1 minute. This is a moment. Let us not have friction. The Prime Minister is at Guru Tegh Bahadur's birth anniversary. Let's observe a certain spirit of decorum. She did not intervene with you. Go ahead, Supriya. We'll wait for Rahul Srivastav also. Go ahead, Supriya.
I think at a time when 10 states in this country are reporting communal violence right now, the Prime Minister's conspicuous silence, if anything, is endorsement of what is happening. Let us, on a TV debate at least, try and be civil.
Sanju Verma's voice. Sanju Verma, you're not playing by the rules.
Don't be so full of hate.
Go ahead now. Supriya Shrinet, finish.
Down. I don't understand why if I did not speak.
Yeah, please go ahead.
The Prime Minister did not speak on the Delhi violence of 2020. He does not speak on Sulli deals. He does not speak on Bulli Bai. He does not speak on Assam and Mizoram at war. He does not speak on Christians and churches being vandalized and attacked this New Year's. He does not speak a word on Yati Narsinganand or Bajrang Muni. He does not speak a word against Kali Charan. He does not speak a word against Sengar or Chinmayanand. He has Ajay Mishra Teni, a very august companion whose son was actually ordered by the Supreme Court to be put back in jail as his colleague, India's Union State Home Minister. So what do I expect the Prime Minister to do? I expect the Prime Minister to blow a lot of hot air like he usually does. वो मन की बात करते हैं मैडम, थोड़ी सी जन की बात शुरू करें. और पीएफआई का झुंझुना बजाना कब बंद करिएगा? पीएफआई को बैन करिए. 8 साल से सत्ता में हैं आप. What stops the Prime Minister from banning the PFI? Because if he bans the PFI, where will these poor little spokespersons go and who will they blame? The reality is that India's Prime Minister is conspicuously silent by his absence as communal riots and incidents of mob violence race through this country, and he chooses to keep quiet, which is an endorsement of what is happening. I have nothing more to say on that. I think my head hangs in shame because he is my Prime Minister as well. I wish he would speak, but I know he will not.
Rahul Srivastav, you're hearing the politicians, the opposition Congress saying the Prime Minister must speak out strongly on the issue of communal harmony. Sanju Verma saying the Congress doesn't have the moral high ground to lecture them. I want to understand from you, the images we saw of the Sikh community in the last 18 months during the farmers' struggle. The epicenter was Sikh farmers. Today, the Prime Minister, this is a big reach out. It's one of the few states, Rahul, where the Modi magic, electoral magic has not worked. 2014, 17, 19, 22, the Aam Aadmi Party swept Punjab. Is this also going to be more a reach out to the Sikhs? It's not so much about Hindu-Muslim. It's a reach out to the Sikhs at a time when the Sikh community has been restive and many believe alienated during the farmers' agitation that took place in 2020-21.
Rajdeep, I think the BJP and the Prime Minister are making a very consistent effort towards this vote bank. Remember, Rajdeep, that Sikhs are not just a group of voters, but a very dominant group of voters. They are influential, they're economically influential, and that makes them a very, very credible vote bank. Rajdeep, and the report for the BJP from the ground is extremely clear that not just Punjab, Rajdeep, but the Sikh anger is extremely serious and deep. And that is why if you look at Himachal Pradesh, Haryana, and few other states where you cannot ignore the Sikh vote. And that's where lies the problem for the BJP, that it does not want that anger to boil down to a point that in every state the Sikhs starts deciding that they are not only going to vote against the BJP, but are going to become a dominant force against the BJP. And the BJP does not want that dislike to turn into extreme dislike, and that is why this reach out by the Prime Minister. The Sikhs are a very critical vote for the BJP, not just Rajdeep in terms of the vote, but also in maintaining that nationalist element that the BJP and stridence that the BJP keeps talking about. Remember, Sikhs not only as voters but also as soldiers. And they have always been part of that BJP's nationalist narrative, and that's why the BJP wants them back. That estrangement. Remember, Rajdeep, this is not just close to the Sardesai Gurdwara. It is exactly where those images had come during those farmer protests on the 26th January, where we saw that policemen were being pushed around, and the BJP made a big meal of it at that time. That big meal element that the BJP created at that time, the BJP has to undo it, Rajdeep.
You know, that's exactly it, Sanju Verma, that this is an occasion to her reach out. You know, this is not BJP versus Congress. This is a moment for the Prime Minister to reach out to a community which, like it or not, has felt alienated. Let's not deny it. Let's not today suggest that the Sikhs are not alienated. They've rejected you politically, that's one thing. But more importantly, there's been a growing restiveness among the Sikh community in the backdrop of what happened during the farmer agitation. It's a moment for the Prime Minister to reach out to a community that he has often claimed at a personal level he's deeply connected to, especially when he was General Secretary in charge of Punjab.
May I? Yes, thank you. I think, Rajdeep, you made some very valid points. let me quickly come to the crux of the matter.
Which way did the sun rise today that you said I've made a valid point? Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, fine. Let me come to the moot point. We all know that the 1984 anti-Sikh genocide happened right under the long nose of Rajiv Gandhi. I don't even want to dignify the statement of जब एक बड़ा पेड़ गिरता है तो धरती हिलती है. That has been repeated ad nauseum. The fact of the matter is that it was after Prime Minister Modi assumed office in 2014, and this your audience needs to know, that a SIT was constituted to probe into the 1984 anti-Sikh genocide, and thanks to Narendra Modi, Sajjan Kumar, one of the key perpetrators of the 1984 Sikh genocide, is today cooling his heels in the jail. Under the Congress, Sajjan Kumar had a free run. So when the Congress party comes to television studios and gives a lecture to the BJP on secularism and inclusivity, I am reminded of the famous Hindi saying, "Hathi ke daant khane ke aur, dikhane ke aur." Why did Congress not institute an SIT? They have no answer. And tell me one thing, Rajdeep. We talk about alienation of the minority community. Who made December 26th the day the Chote Sahibzades of Guru Gobind Singh were martyred? It is Prime Minister Modi. He said that we will remember this date every year henceforward as Bal Divas Day. So let us not try and teach Narendra Modi inclusivity. I have to just say this much. People say, I will end in 20 seconds. I will end in 20 seconds. There is a lot that has been said that Muslims are alienated. Your audience needs to know 31% of PM Kisan Yojana, 33% of PM Ujjwala Yojana, 36% of PM Awas Yojana, and 37% of PM Mudra Yojana allocation is towards Muslims. Prime Minister Modi has done more for Muslims than so-called Congress regimes, which have only sought to polarize, divide,
Can I please come in for 10
seconds? Right. Let Supriya have her 30 seconds also. Supriya Shinin, in a way, you have already damned Prime Minister Modi as someone who doesn't, according to you, follow Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas. So anything that he says today, you will probably reject. What is it, therefore, I come back to it, what is it that you want the Prime Minister to say for the opposition to believe that this is a Prime Minister who genuinely cares for minorities?
Rajdeep, I quoted incidents. You counter me if you can counter me, or let anybody else counter me and tell me when did the Prime Minister speak on the incidents that I quoted. The Prime Minister has not. In fact, the governor appointed by this very government, an ex-BJP person, Mr. Satyapal, don't keep shouting, Sanju. These things can be done in a civil way. I know you don't understand behaving in a civil way. It can be done in a very civil way. So wait for 2 minutes. Wait for your turn to speak, just like I waited for mine. थोड़ा सौहार्द पहले यहाँ दिखाइए. Society में तो आप बाद में दिखा पाइएगा. Rajdeep, I will go back to a very moot point. A governor in this country, a constitutional position held by a governor, has come out and said that when he told the Prime Minister 700 farmers are dead in the farmer protest, have been martyred, the Prime Minister turned around and said, so what? They haven't died for me. मेरे लिए थोड़ी मरे. ये मैं नहीं कह रही हूँ. ये भारत के एक गवर्नर कह रहे हैं, जो पूर्व भाजपा के बड़े नेता भी हैं, सत्यपाल जी. उनकी बात सुनकर तो कुछ रिस्पॉन्ड करिए. The reality, Rajdeep, is I have quoted various incidents, whether it was Delhi riots of 2020 or Sulli Bai or Bulli Bai or Yati Narsingh Arand और बजरंग मुनि और काली चरण. महात्मा गांधी को भी गालियां दी जा रही हैं इस देश में. प्रधानमंत्री के मन में पीड़ा होती होगी, हमें नहीं पता, क्योंकि वो मन की ही बात करते हैं. वो लोगों से तो संवाद करते नहीं है. वो इन लोगों को चुप नहीं कराते हैं. वो अनुराग ठाकुर जब स्टेज से खड़े होकर नारे लगवाते हैं गोली मारो डैश को, तो उनको कैबिनेट मंत्री बनाते हैं. उनकी भारतीय जनता पार्टी कपिल गुर्जर को माला पहनाकर शामिल करती है पार्टी में. That is what Mr. Modi does. He does not come down on elements. And I do believe that the Prime Minister has the moral, authority and the influence to clamp down on these fringe elements. But look at the language that he uses in elections. He actually is the front bearer of what the fringe does once elections are over. वो लैंग्वेज सुना करिए जो वो बोलते हैं, वो किस भाषा में बात करते हैं, वो क्या क्या बोलते हैं, उनके मुख्यमंत्री क्या बोलते हैं, ये वहीं से आती है. ये नीचे से ऊपर नहीं जा रही, ये ऊपर से नीचे आने वाली प्रथा है भाजपा की.
Is that worrying, Sudhindra Kulkarni, is that worrying for you that a prime minister at election time speaks one language, perhaps today will hopefully send out a much stronger message of harmony and brotherhood? There it becomes about Shamshan, Kabristan, people can be judged by the clothes they wear. That's the politics at election time of dog whistle politics, primarily directed against Muslims. Hopefully, there is space to actually commit yourself to some form of interfaith harmony, you believe? Is that possible to play, or the duality must end as well? That there must be a consistency in pitching the message of interfaith harmony?
Rajdeep, I would like to repeat what I said earlier. Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister of India, and the nation expects the Prime Minister to break his silence on the upsurge of communal hatred and even acts of violence in recent months. It is his constitutional duty, whether he does it today or not.
Is that, no, the point I was making, Sudhindra, I think somewhere, is that enough? You can't, you have one, you speak in one language at during a campaign, can you, and then another language, because this is a very holy, pious occasion. Somewhere, is there a disjunction between the two that needs to be eliminated for people to have trust, for minorities, both Sikhs and Muslims, to have greater trust in this government? Sanju Verma says, look at the figures of Pradhan Mantri Kisan Yojana and other schemes. Minorities have been given genuine benefits. How do you respond to that?
You know, the Prime Minister, unlike many Prime Ministers in the past, is forever in the election mode. That is his personality. But as Prime Minister, he is not just the leader of the BJP, he is the Prime Minister of the nation. He is the leader of the nation. And therefore, whenever wrong things happen, and indeed wrong things have happened, it is his duty to condemn these acts of bigotry and ensure that these don't repeat, and especially the machinery of the state acts in an independent and biased manner. We don't know whether he's going to speak today or not, but I would like to make another point. I don't want to add to the polemics of today's debate, because the occasion is such that the occasion tells us to shed phobia of all kinds, both Islamophobia as well as Hindu phobia, because the life of Guru Tegh Bahadur, the life of several other Sikh Gurus, tells us that India really passed through a very dark period in medieval history. I gave examples of that earlier. I don't want to repeat. But if we don't learn from these dark periods of India's history, we are condemned to repeat them. Acts of extreme intolerance, violence, of the kind that many Mughal rulers perpetrated, these must not be forgotten, because they have something to tell us today.
But they can't lead to Islamophobia. What Aurangzeb did, what Aurangzeb did in the late 16th century, early 17th century cannot.
I would like to say, it is the duty of both Hindus and Muslims to shed phobia towards each other. And similarly, I also have a point to make about the secular intellectuals and the secular establishment. We should not negate the wrong thing that happened in India's past, because these memories are not forgotten. The right thing to do is to learn from the past and ensure that we move towards greater integration, greater harmony. The wrongs of one community cannot be righted by wrongs of another community. Unfortunately, even in recent decades, as the point about the genocide of Sikhs in 1984 or the genocide of Muslims in Gujarat riots, we have not learned the right lessons from history. And if what's right now happening in India, if that is any indication, perhaps we are heading towards darker times in the years ahead.
You know, in a sense, Rahul Srivastav, the Prime Minister's approach to these contentious, polarizing communal issues has been to stay away from the noise. Whether it is hijab, halal, azan, even during the farmers' agitation for a long time, the Prime Minister stayed away from confronting it, eventually withdrew the farm laws. It seems in general the Prime Minister's approaches, particularly on religious polarizing issues, I don't want to comment, I am the Prime Minister of the country. Is that the approach? Is that the reason why he tends to stay silent for so long on these issues? Doesn't want to really get involved in polarizing issues where he himself could find himself on one side or the other?
Yes, Rajdeep, if you recall that incident in Gujarat, that in 2011, if I'm not wrong, where the Prime Minister refused to take a skull cap, that was one point from which I have seen that the Prime Minister usually does not want to get involved in issues in which, as you said, he could be found on one side. But I think in this issue, if we go back February 2020, Rajdeep, when the anti-CAA and other protests were on in Delhi, 20 people had died, 200 people had injured, one policeman had died. The Prime Minister took his own time and then he appealed for peace, that he expects that people should live peacefully. He took a bit of time. But Rajdeep, I think what we are missing the real story here, that he is here for Guru Tegh Bahadur. Remember, I think those are utopian times when the Prime Minister's office used to have actions which don't signal politics. I think every action of the Prime Minister now or for a long time has been political. Important here is that if you see that if there are estranged or Muslims feeling alienated, there is no reach out. But if there are Sikhs feeling alienated, the Prime Minister is strongly reaching out. Why, Rajdeep? Remember, the Prime Minister and the BJP do not want a large minority narrative that all minorities are feeling alienated and harassed. The BJP wants to create that one distinction. Also because that when a Sikh community feels alienated, the resonance can be heard in Canada. So Justin Trudeau will make a comment. It can be heard in UK. So Boris Johnson will start speaking about it. That's the power of the Sikh community, Rajdeep. So that course correction is critical for the BJP. One, not to let a minority narrative get built, and also not to let a geopolitical storm get built over it.
Very interesting, because Sanju Verma, Rahul is drawing an important distinction. Prime Minister definitely making a reach out to, as I said, a restive Sikh community. He hasn't made a similar reach out to the Muslim community. In fact, as the incident pointed out by Rahul, in Gujarat, he even refused once to wear a cap that was offered to him by Bora community leaders. There's a sense that the Muslims remain, in a way, alienated even much, and the government hasn't, you may throw figures at me, but the social discrimination that is seen to take place, the dog whistles that are seen to take place, result in a lack of trust deficit. In that sense, does the Prime Minister need to do more? Sikh community today, it should be Muslims tomorrow.
Rajdeep, may I please? Your questions are so lengthy, but you cut me short the moment I start responding. I think your colleague Rahul made some very pertinent points. I just want to say one thing, I will not throw data at you. But let people not forget that be it the Hashimpura riots, be it the Bhagalpur riots of 1989, be it the Dhule riots of 2006, be it the Aligarh riots of 2008, be it the Deganga riots of 2010, be it the Kokrajhar riots of 2012, be it the Muzaffarnagar riots of 2013. All these happened under the watch of an incompetent, inefficient Congress government, either at the center or at the state. So the Congress has its hands soaked in blood. I have not forgotten, Rajdeep, I have a great memory. Hamid Ansari is a career congressman. He served as the vice president from 2007 to 2017. And how shameful that this
No, he's not he's a career diplomat. No, Mr. Ansari, let's not...
Did Rahul Gandhi say a word on Hamid Ansari sharing shares with PFI? No. But Supriya Srinath will come here and start yapping about what...
One minute, ma'am, you must be very careful. Hamid Ansari was a career diplomat. What he chose to do politically, we can have another debate. He's not here to defend himself. I asked you a question about the Prime Minister's reach out. Ma'am, on a day like this,
threatened in India.
On a day like this, let's keep our...
No.
My limited point...
No. Did Priyanka Vadra condemn Hamid Ansari? No. But Narendra Modi सब कुछ करने के बाद भी आप लोग कभी खुश हो ही नहीं सकते.
No, the Prime Minister, ma'am, 1 minute. The Prime Minister then... Would the Prime Minister of the country go to, let's say, a religious celebration that was taking place in a mosque? Would he venture to do that? Is it that he has made it very clear he will not attend iftars? He doesn't belong to the Tilak Topi school of Nitish Kumar.
You keep making allegations. Rajdeep, Sardesai, tell me one thing. Prime Minister Narendra Modi goes to various gurdwaras. He, does a matha tekna. He goes to temples, be it Kashi Vishwanath, be it Kedarnath, be it Akshardham, what have you. He is also a Prime Minister who has on umpteen occasions, given the holy chadar at the Ajmer Dargah, or people on his behalf have done a chadar chadhana at the Ajmer Dargah. This is the only Prime Minister in the last 20 years who visited the Pope in Vatican. This is the only Prime Minister who in 67 years visited both Israel, and within a few months of that he also visited Ramallah. I can't think of any other Prime Minister who dehydrated Israel and Palestine, who visits Ajmer Dargah as many times as he visits Kedarnath and Akshardham. Show me one Prime Minister. Narendra Modi is not like Nehru, who said, oh, I'm a Hindu by accident, I'm a Muslim by culture, and I'm, so and so. The point is that secularism for Narendra Modi means inclusivity, sabka saath, sabka vikas, sabka vishwas, sabka prayas. We are not like Rahul Gandhi, who indulged in selective outrage.
I allowed you to have your long piece. Supriya Srinath, interfaith harmony, the images that I see of today's function is designed to promote interfaith harmony, presumably. That should, that's the bridge builder image we want to see, not the bulldozer. I don't want to see bulldozers only end up in fear, anger and resentment among communities. When you resort to prayer and devotion, you bring out the true essence of religion. To that extent, the Prime Minister attending this function could be an opportunity to push that forward. I come back to it. Are opposition parties, if tomorrow the Prime Minister was to call a meeting on communal harmony or reach out, because violence has taken place in Congress-ruled states as well, would the opposition be willing to hold this kind of a dialogue, or do you simply have no trust in the Prime Minister's ability when it comes to issues of interfaith harmony?
Rajdeep, I will be the first to applaud and accept if Mr. Modi were to rein in the elements that he has unleashed to actually distort India's social and communal fabric. मैं सबसे पहले खड़े होकर उनका साधुवाद करूंगी और ताली बजाऊंगी, लेकिन वो ऐसा नहीं करेंगे. And I will tell you why नहीं करेंगे. कुछ incompetent, inefficient and whatever else words were being used. 3,400. That is a problem.
Relax.
आज तो गुरु तेग बहादुर का प्रकाश पर्व है. थोड़ा सा प्यार, थोड़ी सी मोहब्बत आप भी दिखाइए, थोड़ा सा हंसिए आप भी, थोड़ा सा मुझे भी बोलने दीजिए, थोड़ा सा आप भी बोलिए. इस नफरत से, इस गुस्से में क्यों हर वक्त रहती है? अरे कभी तो थोड़ी प्यार मोहब्बत दिखाइए. आप शांत रहिए, आप चुप रहिए, अब मेरी बात सुनिए. अब मेरी बात सुनिए, क्योंकि बदतमीजी मुझे भी आती है, लेकिन आज दिन नहीं करना चाहिए.
सुप्रिया जी,
please. So the Prime Minister is not going to speak all these things. 3,400 communal riots occurred in this country between 2016 to 2020. I am not quoting these figures. India's Home Ministry has told India's Parliament this. 3,400 communal violence cases all across India in 4 years. Is that not incompetence? Is that not inefficiency? The Secretary of State.
No, those are in state. No, that also reflects on state governments. State governments, law and order is a state subject. Many of those riots, including the most recent one, took in Rajasthan, where there is a Congress government, ma'am.
Fair enough. Listen to me. 17 states ruled by the BJP. You know where majority of the riots happened?
Karoli is Rajasthan.
The US Secretary of State tells our Defense Minister and our Foreign Minister, please wait, I will answer in Rajasthan, tells our Defense Minister and our Foreign Minister that there are human rights violations happening in India Not a word, not a squeak from these ministers, because they obviously did not know how to defend and what to say. It's all very right for Dr. Jaishankar to shut up a journalist because he asked on some crude being bought from Russia. He could not, no squeal, not a word from the two gentlemen on human rights violations. She was talking about some sabka saath, sabka vikas. ये सच है, सबका विनाश हो रहा है इस देश में. Poverty, joblessness, high prices, ये सबकी कमर तोड़ रहे हैं. That's true. Hindus and Muslims alike. And I do hope and I pray when the Prime Minister bows his head in reverence today, at the solemn occasion where he is present, he is going to keep the people, जिनकी रोजी रोटी पर आपके बुलडोजर चले और उनसे लात मारी है. I hope वो उनकी शांति के लिए, उनकी समृद्धि के लिए और उनकी संपन्नता के लिए आज एक छोटी सी प्रेयर जरूर कहेंगे. आज का दिन ऐसा है, प्रधानमंत्री इस देश की शांति, इस देश में अमन और इस देश के लोगों की समृद्धि के लिए कब बात करेंगे. बड़े बड़े जबानी जमा खर्च भाषण देना बंद करना पड़ेगा. I also want Prime Minister remembers जब उन्होंने मत्था टेका, I hope उनको जहांगीरपुरी के लोग और उनके रोते हुए चेहरे याद आए होंगे. वो उन सब के भी प्रधानमंत्री.
I just want to make a fact check to you, Sanju Verma. Did Jawaharlal Nehru ever say, I am English by education, Muslim by culture and Hindu by accident? That is not true. Please do not put it out.
Yes,
it has been put out for... No, 1 minute, ma'am.
Yes, he did
ma'am,
not.
let me handle history. Let me handle history. That's a false. Please do not fall for this WhatsApp fake news university. I've checked. It was NB Khare who said it, not Jawaharlal Nehru. Let us not put false quotes.
Fake news spread karna band karo aap.
It is not said. Not said. We have searched for this statement.
Rajdeep Sardesai, Gali Wali madam, Supriya gave wrong data.
Why are you so angry with the world? Hey BJP, why are you so angry with the world? Yeah? What happened to you? Why can't you be happy sometimes? आज दिन देखिए कैसा है.
Anyway,
go ahead.
Ma'am, I will now stop here. I want to take a break. I want to take a break. We expected the Prime Minister, ma'am, just a minute. Just a minute. We expected the Prime Minister, producer, volume down. We expected the Prime Minister to speak at 9:30. As it is turned out, it is 9:48. The Prime Minister has still not spoken. We'll take a short break. Wait for the Prime Minister to speak. I'm also going to get my colleague Harmeet Singh to tell us the importance of Guru Tegh Bahadur. Why Guru Tegh Bahadur is so important. I'll try and connect with Harmeet on the other side to explain to us why Guru Tegh Bahadur is such a special reverential figure in not just among the Sikh community, but one of the icons of this country. We're back in a moment on this special coverage on a day when the Prime Minister is going to be speaking from the Red Fort. Back in a moment. You're watching the news today. News without the noise.